Africa, still seen as a giant in Africa, and so it should be. But that perception could very well change if government doesn't put the people and the country first. At least that's the view of Phaphano Phasha. She's a researcher and member of the ANC. Now, the country also has to ensure it maintains its position within BRICS. At least 22 countries, very powerful countries, want to become part of the bloc. Currently, it's Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Now, if we were to expand as BRICS, where are we in the rankings? How do we maintain our position? And how do we not just disappear into the ether if the bloc gets bigger? Well, Phaphano Phasha joining us this morning. Phaphano, hello to you. So where's this concern coming from? Good morning.
Morning to your viewers as well.
Give me a sense. Where's this concern coming from about South Africa maintaining its position in BRICS? What's the thinking there?
Well, if you look at the numbers, they do show that South Africa, of the BRICS 5 countries, is not necessarily doing well economically and socially. So now the question is, how does South Africa position itself, looking at the reality that there's been increases in terms of unemployment, job losses, business have been speaking loudly about the trajectory of the economy. But another reality is that South Africa, unlike the other 3 BRIC countries, they're not entangled in this war between Ukraine and Russia. I mean, if you look at India, there will be a G20 summit in September where Russia and the US would be invited. If you look at China, there has been relationships, even though they've been stormy between the Chinese and Americans, including Brazil. So where does this leave South Africa? It's very clear that in terms of our diplomatic approach to Russia, we have been caught wanting, and one of the likelihood is that we are yet to ascertain what we really stand for, diplomatically, as well as, just global politics. We're not able to assert ourselves. Hence, it will look as if we are being bullied either by the US or other countries. And lastly, I mean, if you take the last G7 conference that was held in Japan, South Africa, which is usually invited, was not invited, and this really created alarm bells globally and in the continent. And if many would be aware, the president of the country brushed it off. However, it is of serious concern. Where is South Africa at the moment in terms of geopolitics and its standing as, the continent a forerunning economy? So basically, that is the concern. What is the interest of, South Africa as a member of the BRICS country, as the leading economy in the continent and in the world?
It does make you wonder, but you make a very good point, Phaphano, that if already just within the countries that are part of BRICS at the moment, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and then South Africa, if we're not ranking very high economically and socially there, if we then add more countries into the mix, and this is what I want to ask you about the countries who want to become part of this economic bloc, if we add more countries in, do you get a sense we're going to get pushed further and further down the ranking until eventually we're not even relevant within the BRICS bloc of countries?
Yeah, if you go through the article that I've written, one of the things that I have mentioned is that South Africa is deindustrializing. And one of the beneficiaries, or the major beneficiaries of the closure of factories in South Africa is China. And for me, it's quite interesting because, as I've indicated, what is South Africa really benefiting from this relationship, and where are we economically? Because you look at the relationship between, or the trade relationships which are currently taking place. Many countries, many investors are moving to the east. So there is, that likelihood that if South Africa does not change its economic posture, its policy, as you rightly say, we might be pushed further away.
Let me just ask you this, just in closing, Phaphano, forgive me. I just want to ask you this in closing. As you say, if we're not careful with how we are perceived, we're going to go down the rankings. So if that were to happen, would it be better for us to be, if other countries were to come into BRICS, would it be better for us to stay with BRICS or go more into AGOA? A last question to you.
Well, South Africa must put itself first, whether it's the BRICS partnership or the US, partnership. South Africa must put itself first before it takes any decision in which, in terms of trade agreements, in terms of partnership and alliances. It must take decisions which are in the interest of the country. But at the moment, the reality is that the BRICS partners are engaging in a different manner. America continues to be seen as a big brother which wants to police everyone. You also have the reality that many of the countries which want to join the BRICS countries are tired of the IMF, World Bank finances. So you've got, different realities here. You also have the reality that the US is not part of the ICC like many other countries which are part of the G7. So you do have, obviously, a shift from the bipolar world. So these are decisions that the country needs to take, and those decisions might need to be taken outside of ideologies, outside of the threats of AGOA, because I think it's time that the US starts to negotiate differently. It must not negotiate from a perspective that we will pull away if we do not take our side. It should engage differently, because South Africa is the biggest economy in the continent, and despite what we always say in the negativity, there are checks and balances with our institutions. As much as one can look at Nigeria and many other countries, the reality is that we do have institutions, or we do still have institutions that are able to hold our government accountable. So South Africa is still a great trading partner. I think that it's important for the US and opposition parties like the DA to start dealing with these issues differently, because we do have a fragile economy. We do have a litany of our people who are in poverty and degradation.
And that's why those needs are so very, very important, to ensure that whether, as you say, it's AGOA or BRICS, South Africa has to put itself first for all of those reasons for the people of our country. Phaphano, thank you very much. Lovely chatting to you. Phaphano Phasha, researcher and also member of the ANC as well, about how we fit within BRICS, but how they could change if more players come into the BRICS